Hello Pine Lake, I am back today with another candy experiment. This time we will be taking a closer look at Pop Rocks. I will show you several experiments today that you can do next week when you are on spring break. Have you ever had Pop Rocks before? If you haven't, they are little candy-like rocks that pop or explode in your mouth. It sounds like a candy you would find at Honeydukes in Hogsmeade. Speaking of Harry Potter, WizardingWorld.com has brought Hogwarts to you and your very own Harry Potter hub at home. They have a ton of magical activities for first-time readers and even those who already love it like me. Anyways, let's get to those Pop Rocks. We are going to be looking at 4 different experiments you can do with Pop Rocks at home. Some you can do on your own, while others may require adult supervision. First up, crushing Pop Rocks. Pop Rocks are full of tiny air bubbles. What we want to know is what happens when you crush them. So, here's what you'll need. A package of Pop Rocks unopened and a rolling pin or a mortar and pestle like I am using. If you have a rolling pin, lay the package on a flat surface and crush it with the rolling pin. If you're using a mortar and pestle, like me, we're going to pour the Pop Rocks into the mortar and crush them with a pestle. This can cause some Pop Rocks to jump out of the bowl. So you might end up with a sticky counter, but that's part of the fun. Am I right? Now here we go. Let's see if we can hear them. Okay. See that? It's right inside. Ooh, they're popping out. Can you hear that? Can you see them flying? Ooh. So what's happening? Like I said before, Pop Rocks contain tiny bubbles of carbon dioxide gas. When the hard candy is created, they create a very hot sugar mixture and they mix it with carbon dioxide gas to create high pressure bubbles. When you put the candy in your mouth, it melts and releases the bubbles with a loud pop. It's like popping 1,000 tiny balloons. Next up, puffy Pop Rocks. Can we make our tiny Pop Rocks puff into giant pearls? We now know that Pop Rocks contain carbon dioxide. So what happens when we add heat to them? You will need Pop Rocks, a baking sheet lined with aluminum foil, and an oven. So we're going to preheat our oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. We want to sprinkle a few Pop Rocks on the baking sheet. And then we're only going to heat it in the oven for about 2 to 5 minutes. We've already done this, so you guys could take a look. Now, because they're so tiny, it's really hard to see, so I really encourage you guys to do this one at home. It's kind of, yeah, it is very hard to see, but they do puff up. They're much bigger, and they have a nice round top to them. So they do look puffy, and like we talked about in the first experiment, Pop Rocks are made by pumping carbon dioxide into melted candy. Then it cools, thus trapping the bubbles. The gas in these bubbles is trapped at a very high pressure, 600 psi to be exact. Again, that's why the candy crackles in your mouth when you eat it. All those high pressure bubbles are exploding. But when you melt the Pop Rocks in the oven, the tiny bubbles expand and push on the soft molten candy, making the Pop Rocks expand. Which is why the translucent Pop Rocks turn opaque and cloudy after heating. My first graders should remember those words translucent and opaque from our first grade unit on light and sound. Translucent is when some light can peek through, whereas opaque is where you are not able to see through it. So now let's take a look at unbubbling Pop Rocks. What do you think will happen if we put them in water? What about if we put them in oil? So we will need, again, Pop Rocks, 2 clear glasses, water, and cooking oil like olive or vegetable oil. Now we're going to pour water. We've got water in this glass. You're going to pour water into one glass and you're going to pour the cooking oil into the second glass. Now let's add Pop Rocks to each glass. Do the Pop Rocks and water bubble and fizz? What about if we put them in oil? Will they bubble and fizz? There. Can you hear that? Let's try the oil. What if we try a different flavor? So what's happening here? Pop Rocks are made of sugar, which dissolves in water. As the Pop Rocks dissolve, they release tiny trapped bubbles of what? That's right, carbon dioxide gas, which makes the water bubble and make noise like you hear. But sugar doesn't dissolve in oil, so the Pop Rocks in oil don't dissolve or release bubbles. This is why Pop Rocks can be mixed with chocolate and still keep their bubbles. They don't dissolve until you eat them. If your bowl has any floating Pop Rocks, or if your glass has any floating Pop Rocks, like mine does, let's leave the glass alone for several days. Send me an email with a photo or a video on what happens. Do the Pop Rocks change shape? Do they get sticky? Like I said before, Pop Rocks don't dissolve in oil, but they are hygroscopic, meaning they absorb water from the atmosphere. And if the air is humid, the water starts to dissolve the Pop Rocks in the oil, causing them to flatten, stick together, or even drip to the bottom of the bowl. Pretty cool, huh? Our final activity is called Pop Rock Bubble Trap. We know that if we put Pop Rocks in water, the carbon dioxide bubbles will zoom upwards. But is there a way to slow them down? For this last bit, here's what we're going to need. Pop Rocks, a small clear bowl, cooking oil, and water. Pour about 1 inch of oil into the bowl. Pour the Pop Rocks into the bowl and let them sink down into the bottom. I've decided to do red, green, and blue so you can see them all in the bowl. So now we're going to slowly pour about half a cup of water into the bowl. We're going to watch for rising bubbles. Did they slow down when they reached the oil? Like we said, Pop Rocks don't dissolve in oil, but they do dissolve in water. When this happens, bubbles rise through the water and into the oil. Because the oil is stickier and thicker than water, the bubbles collect together and rise more slowly. Look at the bowl from underneath so you can see the surface of the oil. Its surface makes a reflective layer like a mirror. When you look at it from underneath, sometimes the reflected bubbles look as if they are sinking instead of rising. And if you'd like to see your solution bubble faster, then stir it. I hope you've enjoyed today's activities with Pop Rocks. I know I sure have. Don't forget that hashtag PLP Hugs is happening right now. I would love to see all of the creative ways that you can send a virtual hug. I created my heart today out of Pop Rocks in honor of our experiments we did today. I can't wait to see what y'all come up with. I hope you have a wonderful spring break, and I will see you next time. Keep experimenting.